we said this is page 16. We're talking about points, lines, and planes. I do want to wake y'all up a little bit by throwing a highlighter at you because we have some vocab on here that is going to need to be highlighted. And highlighting your notes statistically improves your comprehension of the notes. It's a fact. So, having said that, please be prepared to catch a highlighter. You ready? This is the paper. Do y'all have the paper at all? No. What's the matter with you? Okay, hold on 1 second. So we're looking at points, lines, and planes. We're going to talk about the foundational aspects of geometry before we dive into the geometry where you're putting it all together. We first need to know the vocab and be able to write it, read it, identify it, and draw it. That's what we've got to be able to do before we hit the, thicker stuff. So look at this right here. We have the words point, line, plane, line segment, and ray. If you were to walk around in the real world, can you tell me examples of each of those? So I want to give you a second to try this. Like, tell me, if I say ray, tell me an example of a ray in everyday life and write it down. Okay, not a sentence. For example, I'm going to go ahead and say sunshine. Did anyone think that? All right, so we have sunshine rays as an example. Because it starts with the sun and then it shoots through whatever it permeates, right? Okay. So 2 minutes on the clock. You try to come up with examples. I would love if you came up with more than one example. So we're just coming up with examples. So at a point, what you come up with? What's an example of a point? Exactly, a location. I said, like on a map, like a city is a point on a map. So you could say location. You could say city on a map. Did anyone come up with anything else? The destination, right? If you're going on a trip. At what point are we there when you get to the address, which is a point on your GPS? What about a line? There's a line that is formed with the sky and the earth. And you really only can see it if you're like a beach, a big old open field. Do you know what I'm talking about? There is the equator, right? That is, it's curved, but in terms of like looking at it on a flat map, it is a line. That's a great example. The one I'm thinking of is an imaginary line that is formed with the earth and the sky. When you look off into the distance, do you know it? Yeah, it starts with an H. Horizon. It's called the horizon. The horizon is an imaginary line formed with the earth and the sky. You can only really see it like at the beach, or if you were at a lake that just had a lot of lake coverage, or if you're out in a very big field with minimal trees, you can see where, like if you look out, you can see where the ground looks like it's touching the sky. That's the horizon. What direction does the horizon run? Left to right, right to left, sideways, right? What direction what vocab word in math describes this direction?
Horizontal.
Yes. What word did I say? Do you see where those two words are related? Horizontal runs left and right, and the horizon runs left and right. And so those two words, the word horizon is the prefix of horizontal. A plane, not the one you fly in. Not the one you fly in. Do you know what a plane is? A wood planter? Okay. What is that? I'm not good with plants.
So it's like
Is it what you put plants in? Or a garden?
wood planter.
Okay. Okay.
So like you put the wood in on one side, it smooths it, shaves it down to a flat surface.
Okay. Planer? Is that a construction equipment?
Yeah, I guess it's
Kind of.
construction.
Okay. I've learned something new every day. I'm not familiar with that
Like
as well.
those wood beams that people build houses out of,
Yeah.
they were planed to be able to get that shape.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great example. Oh, and it's called a wood planer. Okay. I love it. I guarantee that won't come up in the other class. Unless they watch this video. You have a wood planer. How many of you are football fans? Whether you watch it or play it. Anybody? Have you ever heard of the word playing mentioned in the game of football? In terms of a touchdown, the ball has to break the plane. Have you heard that phrase? When they do reviews, they'll be like, did the ball break the plane? You know, was he in possession of the ball? Did he have control? And what they mean by that is, this is where using my rug right here as an example is helpful. Pretend like my rug is the end zone on the football field, right? That means if the player with the ball can get to the end zone, they get the touchdown. All right, pretend like the field is that way. With me? There is a space between the end zone and the field, right? At some point you're on the field, at some point you're in the end zone. If you take the ball and you stretch your arm out where you're hovering above the end zone, you have broken the plane. That means it's a touchdown, as long as you're not on the ground, right? They mean by breaking the plane, there is an imaginary flat 2D space. Imagine if I had a giant tarp that I could hold up right here. There is a flat 2D space between the end zone and the football field. You could imagine what is it? I'm trying to think of those movies, like the Mission Impossible movies. Laser. Those laser beams, you know? Like imagine a giant blanket sheet of laser right here. And if you break the plane, that means you've stretched through the laser and now you're on the other side. Does that make sense? So you could also say the space between this is how I abbreviate between B/W. If you don't know that abbreviation, then don't write it. Write the whole word. It's the space between the field and end zone. Now, line segment, what you think? Great. Seesaw, yeah, starts here, runs here, straight line, ends here, right? That's a great example. I've never heard that one. Seesaw. Anyone else? Do what? Startup line? Start of the line? So a line segment and a line are slightly different, and we're going to get into this with the definitions down here. A line segment means it starts and stops. So you could say like the line to get into a movie or a concert, right? Is that what you were thinking of? So there's like a line where the first person's getting their ticket scanned and then it's all the way to the end, but there's a start and a stop. So you could say a concert line if you wanted to, or sports line, or bathroom line. Perfect example. Okay, so those are just, that was a light little way to kind of get your feet wet with these vocab words. You already know some of these vocab words in the real world. Now we're going to learn it in terms of geometry, okay? I need you to highlight the following words on your paper so that they stick out to you. We have a point, a line, a plane, a segment, and a ray. A point, a line, a plane, a segment, and a ray. Highlight those. Then we will not be highlighting anything else till we get to the bottom, and I'll show you what to highlight there. Okay. You're welcome for giving you the definitions as just fill in the blanks instead of making you write the whole thing. You're welcome. Look at the first one, point. That is a location that has no size. A location that has no size. Look at that, Ryan. It's the exact example you said. Doesn't that make you feel good? I need you to understand that a point doesn't have any depth to it. It's just like, point on the map. Where do you want to go? Right there. It's like a location. It's to divert your eyes to a direction. How do you name a point? With a capital letter. With a capital letter. So, for example, you would just say point A. Like if you just have a capital letter, a single capital letter, it's understood that that means point. All right, you with me? And then what's it look like in terms of the picture? Here's an example right here. So this is point A, right? Next, let's look at line. That would mean a set of infinite points. What's infinite mean? Never ending. Can't count them. There's too many, and it keeps going. A set of infinite points on a straight path that extends forever in two opposite directions. And it has no thickness. So it's very similar to a point in terms of there's no depth to it. A set of infinite points on a straight path that extends forever in opposite directions. It has no thickness. How do you name it? Well, because there's infinite points on a line, you name it by picking any 2 points on the line. Any 2 points. Doesn't matter what 2, because it's a line, it keeps going. There is an alternative way to name lines. It doesn't happen a lot, but it will happen a few times. And that is a cursive letter by the arrow. Now, why would lines have an arrow? Why do lines have arrows?
To show what direction they're going?
Yeah, because it's infinite points. It keeps going. We can't sit here and draw it continuing on. We don't have time for that. So look at this example right here. Here's a line. There's 2 different types of ways to name this line. You could call this line BC. You could call it line CB. You could call it line, that's actually an L. Looks like an E, but I'm going to call it an L because I've never seen a line named E. It's usually line L, line M, line N. I don't know why, but it's usually the middle of the alphabet. So we're going to call this a cursive L right there. So how do you write it? You would say line L, or you can say BC, and then you draw the little arrows above it like a notation, or you can say CB. Notice if we're talking about the line, the order does not matter how you label the letters. Doesn't matter because it's the same thing. Now I'm going to switch screens real quick because I want you to see something. What if we had that line B, C, but it also had A and D on it? And I said, name this line. Is there only one right answer? No, there's lots of answers, right? It's any 2 points, as long as they're on the line. So you could name it BA, you could name it AC, you could name it CD, you could name it BC, you could name it AD. Did I forget one? Can I name it BD? Yeah. Or you could reverse every single one of those and name it that, right? So do you see the potential of how to name a line if there's more than 2 points on it? It does not matter what two you pick as long as you're referring to the same line because it's passing through it, okay? You might think, well, AC only goes from here to here. Well, because it has arrows, that's actually not true. It goes this way and this way. So see, it's the same thing, okay? So start understanding the difference between those. Okay, next is plane. That is a set of infinite points and a line on a flat surface that extends forever and has no thickness. A set of infinite points on a line and a line on a flat surface that extends and has no thickness. The hard part about the vocab word plane is we can't possibly draw a plane correctly because it keeps going. It's like a line. And you might think, well, just put arrows on it. But it doesn't keep going only at the corners. Like the entire thing just keeps spreading out. If you can imagine that, okay? So while this little picture over here is supposed to represent the plane, I need you to understand there's no edges to a plane. You with me? We have to draw edges because we can't possibly draw it the real way it looks. But in terms of understanding a plane, it goes back to that whole mesh laser that is just a thin sheet between two spaces, and it just keeps going, okay? So we have this picture right here. Notice that these 3 points are drawn on it. Notice there is a capital cursive letter R right there. We are talking about how do you identify, how do you name a plane? You just pick 3 points on the plane. Or you can name it by that cursive letter. So for instance, there's 3 ways to name this one. We could call it plane DEF, or we can say plane R. You can name it either way. We don't have a lot of instances with a plane. So if this is something hard to understand, good news is it doesn't come up a lot, but when it does come up, I do need you to know it, okay? I think it might come up like 2 or 3 times total. Segment. This comes up a lot. Okay, segment is a portion of a line, portion, meaning not the whole thing, just a portion, that consists of 2 endpoints and all the points between them. Bless me. A portion of a line that consists of 2 endpoints and all the points between them. How do you name it? You name it by the 2 endpoints. And we're going to say in any order, because the order does not matter when you're talking about a segment. It's very similar to when you're talking about a line. The order does not matter. However, you do need to make sure that if you're talking about starting at G and ending at H, you would name it GH or HG, either one. Okay? So we would call this GH or HG, and now above it, we don't draw the one with the arrows because that would mean line. We just draw this. Okay, ray. Ray is what you already understand in terms of the sun's rays. It starts and then it continues on. So a ray is a portion of a line that consists of 1 endpoint and all the points on the line, all the points of the line on one side. What is this? All the points of the line on one side of the endpoint continuing forever in one direction. Now that's a really dense definition. So just fill in your blanks and then I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so here's our example over here. We have this ray. Notice the difference between this picture and the ones we've had. There's an arrow over here, but there's no arrow on this side, right? Okay, so this is what makes it a ray, is it has a start point, and then it continues on through another point with an arrow. How do you name it? This is what you need to highlight. I don't know if you want to highlight first and then write over it, because sometimes highlighters bleed when you highlight like pencil. It's up to you. But I need you to make a note. Order matters. When you're naming rays, the order matters. How do you name it? You start with endpoint and go to the arrow. You start with the endpoint and you go to the arrow. So for instance, there is only one way to name this ray, and that would be what? What's the only way to name this example? I to J. So it's going to be I to J, and then above it, you very carefully draw a ray. So the way I do it, there's two ways actually. I'm going to remove this and show you both of them. I'm going to write it twice. There's two ways to draw the ray above it. You can either draw one like that, which is fine. Sometimes I might I try to do that, but sometimes I naturally do this. I don't know why, but it kind of looks like a hook. But this is to say I start at I, and then there's an arrow on J. You pick which one you like, it doesn't matter, okay? But what did not change? What do you notice was the same on both of them? The order of the letters, and that's because it's a ray, which means order matters, it's picky. Now go to the back, we have two more vocab words. Then we're going to look at two examples, and then we have practice problems. Please highlight collinear and coplanar. Collinear, coplanar. Coplanar doesn't come up a lot, but again, it's one of those things I need to show it to you because it might come up one time. Collinear comes up a lot, okay? You need to know it. Have you ever seen the bumper sticker on the back of people's car that says coexist? And it's the different types of beliefs underneath that coexist. Have you seen that? Okay. Well, the concept behind it is you've got what you believe, I've got what I believe. We should find some way to coexist and not hate each other, right? And it's the different symbols of what people might believe in. Okay, so collinear, the reason I say that is because collinear is the same concept, but we're not talking about what you believe in, we're talking about geometry. What geometry word that we just learned is in collinear? What geometry word is in collinear? There's a word embedded in there. Was it you? Who said it? What is it? Linear and line, same thing. Line is hidden in there, right? If you need to underline it, I'm not trying to say line again, carefully underline line in collinear. Here's the definition. It's points that lie on the same line. Points that lie on the same line. So for example, look at this picture to the right. We have a single line. Points J, K, L are what's called collinear because they're all on the same line. A single straight line shoots through them. That means they're collinear. They coexist on the same line. I love mathematicians' creativity for naming things because the majority of the time the name is telling you what it does. If you're just creative enough to think, ooh, that means coexisting on the same line. Now, coplanar is the same concept, but they're coexisting on the same plane. So it's like that, like if they all got caught up in that mesh laser shield, they would be coplanar. So it's points that lie on the same plane. So points M, O, P are coplanar. Okay, two concepts I need you to understand that's going to happen a lot. If any two lines intersect, intersect means they cross. You with me? If any two lines intersect, they will have a point in common. I need you to know that. intersection of two lines is a point. This would be the point in common, meaning that point is on both of those lines, and only that point. Now, if two planes intersect, it's not a point that they have in common, it's actually a line that they would have in common. So in this case, it would be the line in common. You might want to take your highlighter and highlight this right here, because that's where the line is on both of those planes. At this point now, we are ready to practice. We have 1 through 12. I want to mix it up because I know y'all have been sitting here. I want you to get up, everybody, go find a partner, go somewhere else in the room, and try 1 through 12. You are naming the vocab or naming the actual object. And if you need help, look at the front of your paper. Then we're going to check it. For 1 through 4, it says identify the type of the figure and then name it. So we're saying what it is and then we're naming it. So number 1, what's that? And I need everybody's participation, or I'm going to start calling on people. Ray. And how do you name that? And that's the only way to name it, right? A to C, and you draw Ray above it, correct?
Yes.
So that would be Ray AC. What about number 2? What shape is that? What object? That is a line. What are the possible ways to name it? Give me one.
DF.
DF?
Yeah.
Give me another, Logan.
G or D.
Good. Give me another. Keep going. Or G to... We already went G to F. What about F to G? Can you do that? Yes. We're running out of options now, but let me help you out. So yeah, you could either name this D through G. You could name it F through G. You could reverse those letters. You could name it... No, that's it, right? There's only 4 options. Okay. Number 3. What is this object? That's a plane. Name one way to name it. H-I-J. Name another way, Ryan.
E-H-I.
E-H-I. Gabe, name another way.
J-H-I.
J-H-I. You just need how many points? 3. So I'm just going to put E-H-J. Does not matter what you put, though, as long as it's 3 letters. Number 4, what shape is that? That is a line segment, and we tend to just say segment so we don't confuse it with an actual line, okay? How can you name it? Or? Very good. Doesn't matter, but there's only 2 ways to name it. 5 through 7, it says, name 2 of each type from the picture. Name 2 segments from the picture. Well, you got to remember what a segment is. Segment starts and stops. So, somebody throw a segment out. A to C. Very good. A, and above it, you would definitely have to write that, correct? Because if I drew the arrows, then that's actually line AC, right? Which is different. Name another segment on here, because it says to name two. B to D. All right. Mason, name a ray.
A.
And which one has the arrow above it?
A.
D. Look at the picture. So it's going to start on A and it's going to pass through D. So it's very important that you put the arrow above the D. Someone else, name a ray. A what? A-E? Yeah. What'd you say? B to C. So you would start at B and pass through C. So, what'd she say? A to E. I need you to know that even though the picture may not necessarily start at that letter, like for instance B. B actually has several lines through it, right? If you were to write B, did you say C? And you wrote above it the ray symbol, that would mean start at B and go through C, which is possible to do here, okay? Lines. Stay with me. Name a line. B, F. Name another one. A, C. Arrows on both, right? Okay, 7 through 12 is saying, hey, look at this really complicated shape or picture. You have a plane laying flat, then you have a plane vertical that's passing through it. Then you have some points, and then you have some lines, right? The way to imagine this is your flat plane, and then you have that vertical plane that's like shooting straight through it, okay? All right, intersections of planes S and P. They intersect at what? Well, looking at the top of the paper, we said intersection of two planes is always a what? We said the intersection of two planes is always a line. So what line do they have in common? Yes, I think it's a T instead of an L. But yes, it would be line T. You could also say line KJ or KH. The intersection of line T and line N. Here's line N. Here's line T. Where do they intersect at? Follow them with your eyes. Point J, right? Name 3 collinear points. Collinear means what? Points on the same line. So find a line, then name 3 points on it. GJL, very good. Is that the only answer? Nope. You could also say KJ, careful here, H, right? I is referring to that point over there. Name 3 coplanar points. IHJ. So if you look at this flat one, J is on the flat one, I is up here in the corner of the flat one. When I say flat, I mean like it's laying down. And then H is right there. So yes, I, J, and H are all coplanar points. Find a ray that is on the plane HIK. HIK is the flat one. Name a ray that would be on it. Well, it's going to come from this line right here. right? So if I'm naming an array, I need how many letters to name array? 2. So name one. Do what? H and K. And if we were naming an array, we need to do what symbol above it? Start and keep going, right? Name a segment on plane GKL. That would be that vertical plane. They're saying name a segment. You just have that line going through it right there. You could say GJ. Your practice assignment is a Delta Math assignment with 10 questions, just naming. I honestly would say that this was more challenging than the Delta Math is, because the pictures are very simple. They don't have them clustered with other stuff, okay? Order matters with some of these, so be careful. We'll have to find that push pin.
Yeah.
But that is your practice assignment, is the Delta Math. It's already posted. I'm looking to see who has it done before you come to class tomorrow, which means work on it in Flex.